How people treated disease in the Middle Ages without doctors was shaped by fear, belief, and desperation. For most medieval people, a doctor was someone they would never meet. Doctors were rare, expensive, often living far away in cities. For villagers and peasants, illness was faced alone, or with the help of family, or with whatever knowledge had been passed down. Disease was not understood as a physical process. It was moral, spiritual, cosmic. People believed illness came from imbalance, or from sin, or from God's will, sometimes from all of them at once. When someone fell ill, the first response was not medicine. It was prayer. People prayed for forgiveness, for mercy, for relief. Confession mattered. Illness was seen as a message, a warning, a punishment, or a test. If sickness appeared suddenly, people searched for reasons. Had they offended God, broken a vow, ignored a holy day? The sick were encouraged to repent, because healing was believed to begin with the soul. Alongside prayer, people turned to folk remedies. Knowledge passed from generation to generation, mostly by women, mothers, grandmothers, midwives. These women were the healers of everyday life. They knew plants, roots, leaves, barks. They gathered herbs from forests and fields. Some worked, others did nothing, but people relied on them anyway. Herbs were boiled into teas, ground into pastes, applied to wounds, drunk to reduce fever. Garlic was used against infection. Honey was used on wounds. Willow bark eased pain. People observed what seemed to help. They remembered. Trial and error shaped treatment. Disease was also blamed on bad air, miasma. Rotting smells were believed to cause sickness. If a house smelled foul, illness was expected. People opened windows, burned herbs, carried scented pouches. They believed good smells protected the body. Bad smells poisoned it. Cleanliness existed, but differently. Bathing was rare. But washing wounds mattered, not because of germs, but because dirt was seen as corrupt. Bloodletting was common, very common. People believed too much blood caused illness, so blood was removed. With knives, with leeches, weak patients became weaker. Sometimes they died. But the practice continued because ancient texts supported it, and tradition mattered more than results. Diet was another form of treatment. Food was medicine. Hot foods balanced cold illnesses. Cold foods balanced hot ones. People avoided certain foods when sick. Meat was often restricted. Broth was preferred. Bread soaked in wine was common. Fasting was sometimes prescribed, starving the body to cleanse it. Pain was accepted. Suffering was expected. People believed enduring illness patiently was virtuous. Crying too much was discouraged. Complaining was sinful. Pain brought people closer to God. Disease spread quickly. People did not isolate properly. They did not understand contagion. Families shared beds. Villages shared wells. When one fell ill, others followed. Fear grew. People avoided the sick, not out of cruelty, but survival. The sick were sometimes abandoned, especially during plagues, not because they were hated, but because fear was stronger than compassion. Healing rituals were common. Charms, amulets, written prayers folded and worn on the body. Relics were powerful. Bones of saints, cloth touched to holy objects. People believed proximity healed. Pilgrimages were undertaken. The sick traveled long distances, weak, hungry, hopeful. Many died on the road. Some returned unchanged. A few claimed miracles. Those stories spread. Hope survived, even when medicine failed. Children were treated differently. Illness in children was expected. Many did not survive. Parents accepted this reality. They treated children gently, but without illusion. If a child recovered, it was a blessing. If not, it was God's will. Without doctors, people relied on belief, on observation, on tradition, on faith. Disease was not an enemy to defeat, it was a force to endure. Survival was uncertain, healing was never guaranteed, and death was always close. When disease spread across entire communities, fear reshaped behavior. During epidemics, people did not search for cures. They searched for meaning. Why was this happening? Who was being punished? What had been done wrong? Processions filled the streets. People walked barefoot. They whipped themselves. They begged for mercy. Pain was believed to appease God. If suffering caused illness, suffering might remove it. Whole villages gathered to pray together, not to heal bodies, but to save souls. Isolation was rare. People did not understand contagion. Families stayed together. The sick slept beside the healthy. Care was intimate and dangerous. When fear became overwhelming, some fled. They left homes behind. They abandoned the sick, not out of cruelty, but terror. Flight felt like survival. In cities, disease spread faster. Crowded houses, shared water, filth everywhere. Urban healers relied more on rituals, burning herbs in the streets, ringing church bells, believing sound itself could drive illness away. Quarantine existed in limited form, not to stop disease, but to separate the impure. The sick were pushed outside city walls, left in huts, visited by priests, rarely by healers. Care during illness depended on status. The poor relied on family and neighbors. The wealthy had access to better food, cleaner spaces, occasionally trained physicians. But even wealth did not guarantee survival. Plague ignored status. Kings died. Bishops died. Doctors died. Trust in medicine was fragile. Every failure reinforced faith over science. People remembered prayers that seemed to work. They forgot treatments that failed. Memory shaped belief. Some treatments accidentally helped. Rest mattered. Warmth mattered. Clean water mattered. But these were not understood as medical truths. They were seen as comforts. If someone survived, the reason was never medicine. It was God's will. This belief protected people emotionally. If death came, it had meaning. If survival came, it was mercy. Without this framework, suffering would have been unbearable. Women remained central to care. They stayed with the sick. They washed bodies. They prepared food. They whispered prayers. Their labor was constant, unrecognized, essential. Without doctors, healing was communal. Illness was not private. It was shared. Neighbors knew. Families gathered. Death happened at home, not behind walls. Children witnessed sickness early. They learned fear. They learned acceptance. They learned endurance. Over time, small knowledge accumulated. Some noticed patterns. Clean wounds healed better. Fresh air helped breathing. Certain herbs reduced pain, but knowledge spread slowly and was often rejected. Tradition was safer than change. Change felt dangerous. If something new failed, blame followed. Sticking to tradition felt righteous, even when it failed. People did not ask if treatments worked. They asked if they were proper, if they were faithful, if they were accepted by the community. Medicine was not separate from morality. Healing was not separate from belief. The body was not separate from the soul. Living without doctors meant living without certainty. Every illness carried risk. Every fever carried fear. Every cough could be the last. People lived with this awareness constantly, and yet they continued. They worked while sick. They cared while weak. They endured because there was no alternative. Treatment without doctors was not about cure. It was about meaning, about comfort, about facing suffering together. In a world without medical certainty, belief was survival, and sometimes, against all odds, it was enough.